Much like 2 before it, Resident Evil 3 was originally released on the PS1 in 1999 and it got a complete remake in 2020, and although I know very little about the game, I know that the remake wasn't as well received as 2's remake was. So, like in that video, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the original release first and then comparing the experience I had there to the remake, so let's get into it. This is my thoughts on Resident Evil 3 and its remake. The game seems to take place concurrently with the events of Resident Evil 2. It's a little bit weird, especially with the remake. Some little bits of it take place just before, but it's about the same time. We see the wider police force attempting in vain to combat the zombies, and Jill here comes literally blasting onto the scene. It was a really cool little sequence. They really seem to be cranking up the action aspects even this early into the series with each subsequent entry. You get an in-game booklet explaining the controls, and I think that's really cool in case like you have the game and you don't have like the manual. And it includes new moves like little dodges and quick tackles that you can do. It makes Jill really versatile even if she's not using a gun. I liked her design fine enough in the original Resident Evil, but this costume is sick. It is definitely the outfit I think of when Jill Valentine comes to mind.
I'm sorry about your daughter, but there isn't gonna be any rescue. We have to get out of here.
No! I'm not going anywhere.
Damn, that scream was a bit real. It took me aback for a second.
Then be eaten by one of those undead monsters.
One thing that 3 does really well is seeing and hearing both infantry and citizens running about trying to survive the zombie horde. It makes the world feel a lot more alive despite the undead circumstances of things. It doesn't take long to find a former unit of Jill's squad, and after a close call, he explains that something is out there hunting STARS members specifically before he leaves. And very soon after, we find out what that squad member named Brad was talking about, the newest in Umbrella's big stalkers technology, Nemesis. And I think the thing I was looking forward to most in Resident Evil 3 is Nemesis and the context of him in his debut game. Since the way I was introduced to him was in Marvel vs. Capcom, I didn't really know anything about him except he was a big zombie guy and he had a rocket launcher and tentacle things. There's also these really unique little segments where the game's colours invert and you're forced to make a decision on the fly on how to proceed. In this case, as an example, you can either try and fight Nemesis or flee into the police station, and I ended up choosing the latter since I'm guessing trying to fight him this early on is a bit of a useless endeavour. The Raccoon City Police Station. In most cases, I bet returning here would have been like so cool, especially at the time, but I'm a bit fucking sick of this place, I'm not gonna lie. Although I know this isn't the game's fault in the slightest, so I can't really hold it against it. It probably is me playing both original 2 and 2 remake back to back. And now we've got the announcement of Resident Evil 9 with Raccoon City Police Station probably being an important place. I'm just sick of it. Jill needs to make her way up into the STARS office, and once she does, she picks up the lockpick. You've got to remind everyone who's the master of unlocking, after all. But once she gets this, Nemesis starts to pursue her proper, I guess because now she's officially the master of unlocking again. She's a legitimate threat, I guess. Later on, we bump into this dude named Carlos, who works as a mercenary hired by Umbrella in an effort to evacuate the citizens, which is a surprise. I thought he was going to be like a dude that guns down like stragglers or something.
Just say you belong to Umbrella's army? The survivors.
We find his team in a non-functioning cable car and hesitantly agree to team up with them to survive. So now we have our goal, get to where we can be safely rescued via helicopter, and get this cable car working so we can ram through the worst parts of town. In my quest, I blew up a gas station because, I don't know, I'm such a Gemini. Ooh woo. I hate that. I got stuck for a good while, and I realised I ended up needing to get a part way further back, and let me tell you, getting into that fucking sales office absolute nightmare. Just for the longest time, I just couldn't figure out how I was supposed to do it, and then I remembered the fucking fire hose. I don't know how I missed that, but I took too long and I got really annoyed. But not the game's fault, it is just me forgetting shit and being dumb. And speaking of me being dumb, I did not realise here that these red boxes on the walls were bombs until it was too late. Oopsie daisy. As a side note, I really like this puzzle with the product on the TV ad being the password. I don't know, something about the actual advert itself, like how it's rendered, I just find the puzzle very cute. There's no time for that now though, Goku. Zombies are flooding into the building. Whilst on the way back to get the cable car moving, the ground just literally breaks beneath Jill's feet and we have to avoid this horrible dickworm monster. But thankfully the route out takes us directly to the cable car. Of course, it's not that simple and we have to take on Nemesis one-on-one, but just like before, we don't have enough firepower to actually take it down, and Mikhail sacrifices himself so the car can take off without the uninvited guest. After the cable car crashes violently, Jill comes to in a nearby clock tower and has to carry on alone. For all of 10 seconds because we run back into Carlos, who's despairing that they have no realistic way to get out, to which Jill just gives him a fucking smack and basically tells him to get a grip. I kinda love it.
That's it then, huh?
In the room over, we have a cutscene with a little music box, and as I guessed rightly later on, I figured this would be important for a puzzle later since it says the melody's out of order, but the actual music used did a really good job in creeping me out. I was not a fan. I mean, I was. It's good music, but it's creepy. In the clock tower, they really like to use these tiny spider enemies that spawn when you kill the big ones, and they are, like, particularly annoying. After doing that music puzzle that I clairvoyantly figured out would be important, it gets the bell to ring, which notifies the helicopter to come down. And for a second, I did think that was just going to be the end of the game, and I was like, oh wow, this is, like, short for a Resident Evil game. Like, even though they are pretty short games, like, this is a really short game. But nah, Nemesis is there to halt the escape plan. As Jill is about to be killed, Carlos swoops in and seemingly sacrifices himself to save her life. We do manage to fight off Nemesis again, although Jill seems to have been infected from the battle. She ends up passing out, and when she awakens, Carlos is with her, having carried her to safety, and due to this she needs to recover, so we get to play as him in a small section. We manage to find a hospital, and here I think is the return of the Hunter enemies from the original Resident Evil. I'm pretty sure that that's them. Carlos comes across his superior officer, Nikolai, gunning down an innocent, but before he can do the same to us, the aforementioned victim pulls out a grenade and throws it towards the two, causing Nikolai to jump out of a window. And I was really thinking, you know what, I must be at the end of the game after all, because there's a scary laboratory at the bottom of this hospital, and this very puzzle-heavy section had me extremely confused. Like, I just could not figure out where I needed to put this cabinet? After a good deal of trial and error, I managed to create the vaccine for Jill, and just in time because the hospital's been rigged to explode, and on top of that, Nemesis is back. This is really not Carlos's day. We're back in control of Jill now though, as she's been fully cured of the virus. We have to make our way through this park, and although it's brief, I absolutely love this as a general setting in a zombie game. The more wooded areas are especially creepy to me. I actually wish that this bit was longer. It was honestly my favourite part of the game. I don't know why. I just think it pairs very well with the idea of shambling zombies, like in a very dark forest in the dead of night. But I haven't played a lot of zombie games, but this is the only zombie game I've played where, or even like horror game really, where it takes place like specifically in the woods, other than like maybe Slender, but that's not really horror, that's white man jump scare. It probably is a more, like, used setting, but I genuinely don't know because like I say, I don't have a ton of experience with zombie games or horror games. Little fun fact is like a side tangent. I used to be really, really scared of zombies as like a kid. Like, for some reason, it was like zombies specifically. I think my just little autistic baby brain couldn't process something like being alive after being dead. Although, like, ghosts were fine, like, spirits were fine to me, because they were, like, their own thing. They were, they were firmly in their own thing, or look completely different from humans most of the time. White sheet, woo, those kinds of ghosts. Like, Boo's and Mario, like, they're their own thing, for example. Like, they're ghosts. But, like, zombies, like, straight up walking corpses, I think seeing something that, like, shoot it in a film or a game, bam, it's dead, and it getting up after and just looking like a walking corpse, just something about my little brain, bless me, could not compute that. Anyway, side tangent aside, the section ends in this cabin that, despite looking like a good place to have some enemies, is actually a genuine safe zone, and it gives us the final use for the lighter in the game with the fireplace here. As we're about to leave, a message comes up from a console inside saying to abandon the project. I wonder what that means. Apparently the shenanigans Umbrella's started is just getting too much for even them to deal with. And the second that we step outside, well, I've described some enemies in this series looking like penis monsters. Now, this is a prime example of a penis monster. After we kill that and another close call with Nemesis, we get saved by none other than a surviving Carlos, who's discovered that Umbrella are planning to nuke the city by sunrise, which apparently is very soon. It's just going to be in like a couple hours.
We have to split up and find a way out of here.
And I just have to point out, this water puzzle here, I fucking hate it. It's really annoying, and I will not elaborate on it. It really fucking frustrated me, like, genuinely. Once we manage to clear it, Nemesis corners us, and after a little action sequence, we have 4 minutes to take him out. The Magnum made very quick work on him, though. And when we try to catch up to Nikolai, he's ran off and is now trying to gun us down in a fucking helicopter. Like, how did he get that so quickly? And we have to act quickly because by the time this timer goes off, that's when the missile's gonna hit the city. We have to then connect these 3 batteries while fighting off Nemesis, who's become this gigantic acid-spewing blob creature. But you might be asking, what are these batteries for exactly? Only a fucking railgun to absolutely obliterate the bioweapon, baby. We can choose to ignore it or give it a final goodbye, and come on, you know I had to do it to him after all the mischief Nemesis has put Jill through.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Jill's kind of a fucking badass, wow. After all that, Jill and Carlos are finally picked up in that helicopter, piloted none other than the GOAT himself, one Barry Burton.
Is it you?
Are you ready to finish this?
Just in time to escape Raccoon City being completely destroyed. Upon beating the game, you do get an extra story, but unlike in the previous titles, it is exactly the same with the exception of getting to choose some different options in those Q2E segments, and some remixed item placements, but the actual story beats are completely the same. I would assume that you'd be playing Carlos or something, but no, it's not that, so I'm not going to cover it here. To be honest, aside from some particularly obnoxious puzzles, I loved my time with Resident Evil 3, so I'm eager to see how the remake mixes things up. Something very unique that the remake does, it starts off with some real life footage, and I really liked this. It felt very akin to the FMVs of the old games, Resident Evil 1 specifically. I feel like it's just not something you see in, like, modern games often nowadays. It's different. Me likey. After that, we get this quite honestly bizarre first-person sequence in what I'm assuming is Jill's apartment. My guess is it's trying to connect itself to Resident Evil 7, since I know that was the start of the first-person view, but I'm honestly not sure. And when she goes to turn the bathroom tap off, she starts tweaking into this zombie-like state. Gotcha, it's a recurrent bad dream she's been having. My guess would be this is foreshadowing to when she gets infected later on in the story. But it wasn't really that big a deal in the original, so unless they kind of make more of a point of it here, I'm not really sure what this is for, other than being a bit spooky. I like this dog picture on Jill's desk. It's a nice dog. Anyway, it doesn't take long before we're back into the third-person view like in Resident Evil 2 Remake, and this is how the rest of the game will play out, and goddamn, she's being jumped by Nemesis already. I'm not being funny, Jill, but if you've seen this thing break through a wall like it's fucking nothing, what is holding a wooden door closed going to accomplish? Think about your decisions. A mad dash to try and escape Raccoon City ensues, ending with Jill being saved by Carlos, and I find something about Nemesis just kneeling there after being hit with a rocket launcher really funny. Bro's just snoozing off his boo-boo. I have to say, it does feel like we're going through the original story beats very quickly. We've met Carlos' squad already, and we've had the aforementioned Nemesis chase, and now we've got to make our way to this tower, and I've never heard the phrase tall drink of water before, like, used for flirting. Is this flirting? Does it work? If I was a single man and I hit up a club and call a girl a big fat gulpable water bottle, would that rizz 'em up? Down in the comments, go do it and report your results. You will probably get punched. I'm a big fan that they've kept the environmental hazards, like the exploding barrels and the electrical outlets, that help give you a one-up against enemies. It's just a fun little added detail to gameplay, and when you manage to line something up and get an advantage, and say for example there's a group of zombies and you get them all by the barrel and just shoot that instead of using a bunch of bullets to kill them all, makes me feel real smart. That's fun. As I've now gotten these bolt cutters, I decided to backtrack a bit and see what was beyond those locked doors. It was just some extra items, but in these games I very much like to stockpile anything I can get my hands on. Later on I finally got the lockpick too, meaning those simple locks that I've been coming across are no longer an issue. I can't say I was a fan of this, I don't know what I can really call it, the ugly bugly section. I was expecting for this point to be the introduction of the blue herb, since the bugs put a parasite in you if you're grabbed, but no, any herb will cure that. They do explain in a nearby note that the bugs hate any kind of herb, so that is a cool little world-building tidbit, but I'm surprised that the blue herb was just completely omitted in this entry. And literally as I was thinking it's been a bit since we've seen Nemesis, he comes crashing through a building. But I was able to slow him down using those environmental gimmicks, which made me feel like a smart boy. I want to point out this bit in the toy shop here, and it really got a laugh out of me. We've got a zombie running at the door here, Nemesis just chilling by the window, and ugly box art Mega Man watching it all pan out to top it off. Beautiful. This is modern art. We get back to the subway after getting everything back up and running, and we have another chase sequence.
Come on, you creepy-ass stalker!
ending on Jill zipping into the sewers here. It doesn't take long for us to make our way back out, and I want to note the design of these dinosaur things. I don't remember them being in the original at all, but I do like them. They remind me of the dragon asses in Lost Izalith and Dark Souls 1. And right as Jill gets out of the sewers and says that she's lost him, Nemesis is just waiting for her and tries to crush her head like a watermelon. This also got a laugh out of me. It's my headcanon that Umbrella programmed Nemesis to have good comedic timing. I really enjoyed this new small section where we have to avoid Nemesis by climbing up the scaffolding, but when he corners us on the rooftop, it's finally time for Jill to fight back against him. And yeah, it's just a solid boss fight. I wasn't expecting to see him here for some reason, but this bit with Kendall the gun shop owner, it really made me sad. I think this is just before Leon and Ada find him in Resident Evil 2, but yeah, you know the writings on the wall here with what you can hear when he goes into his house. Poor guy. It's not much, but I do like that Jill's initially much more openly hostile towards Carlos, and the pair have to slowly warm up to each other. It does make sense considering, obviously, he works for Umbrella, and she's aware of all the goings-on, and he's not as clued up. But I don't know, it just gives the pair a little bit more back and forth than they had in the original. In a new little twist, Nemesis stopping the train is much more openly a setup from Nikolai to have Jill killed, but the injured teammates put a stop to those plans, and we cut to Carlos still in the city. We have to play as him in this short section. He's been ordered to get to the police station to try and save a scientist who may be able to create a vaccine for the zombie outbreak, and we get into the STARS office and find out that he's trapped in some hospital, before we cut back to Jill making her way out of the subway wreckage. One thing that kind of confused me, why would Jill assume Nemesis couldn't swim? Because it went into the water when it was on fire? If anything, that would be proof that it's, like, smart, isn't it? Anyway, the damage it sustained has caused it to transform into a form that's reminiscent of the original game's final boss, and we have to fight him yet again. I'm a big fan of this battle. It's just a lot of fun, plain and simple. And having him cling on to the sides of buildings and having to, like, shoot him down with an explosive so you can take out its, like, growth on its weird tongue thing. That's just cool, plain and simple. It's here that Nemesis manages to infect Jill, and Carlos does find her, bringing her to the hospital so we can attempt to find a cure. And this one, like, scare of the reptile monster just sprinting across the hall from you genuinely fucking got to me. Like, not in a, like, scream out loud kind of way, but more of like a eyes widen, what the fuck was that sort of way. Like, I really liked it. Uh-oh, the scientist they were looking for is dead and has left a message spilling Umbrella's dirty secrets. I do like the added depth they've given to Carlos's character here. He's not the smartest, but he does genuinely mean well, whereas in the original he was just kind of horny. He is still that in the remake, don't get me wrong, but there's a bit more to him here, I feel. He manages to get the vaccine to Jill, and we move on to this Horde section where we have to defend the room that she's recovering in, and I'm not a fan of it. In my opinion, these kinds of things in games are only really fun with friends. It just got a little bit much after a while. We cut back to Jill, who's woken up to the news that the city will be wiped of all life, and Carlos has gone underground to search for more vaccines, so she intends to go down and help him out, and we take control as her once again. Nikolai manages to trap Jill in this warehouse, so we need to travel around it collecting these fuses to progress. He's gone by the time we can reach where he is lurking though, however Tyrell, one of the mercs on Carlos's team, has managed to strike a deal. The nuke will be called off if we can get the vaccine in time. So the rest of the game takes place inside this laboratory section. Again, I'm sensing a pattern that every Resident Evil game ends in a laboratory section, so we're on 3 for 3. However, I can't really say I'm a big fan of this bit. It feels very basic to me. There's not a lot to it exploration-wise. And there's not really any new enemies. There's these more durable zombies. But that's it. There's nothing like the plant monsters that are genuinely like a visual mix-up. The final fight with Nemesis is pretty cool still. You have to use the railgun and push in the 3 columns to charge it up, but it takes place in this flat room now, so you don't have these small sections that you can duck around in like in the original, and that makes the fight feel less dynamic. Plus, it's kind of annoying to avoid his grab if he decides to go for it when you're in the middle of pushing the columns, so you've got to immobilize him by shooting his boils? Boils. Let's go with boils. So yeah, don't forget to do that, or just grab you and it's a one-hit kill. The rest of the game is pretty much just cutscenes. Nikolai firing missiles at you and his chopper is gone. Instead, Carlos has got him at the helicopter landing pad and has got him grabbed, so Jill can try and shoot him. And yeah, she does. They try to go like, oh, if she shoots Nikolai, she's gonna shoot Carlos too, but I'd assume that they were all wearing like a bulletproof vest anyway, and yeah, he's absolutely fine. Like in the original, the two manage to escape in the helicopter as the nuke goes off. However, most tragically of all, there's no Barry cameo at the end. And that's how you know this is an absolutely dogshit game. Ruined. Do not play. Atrocious. Purr. Get out of my sight. Disgusting. Like I mentioned before, I really enjoyed my time with the original Resident Evil 3. But from what I'd heard about the remake, I thought I would have disliked it a lot more, but I was pleasantly surprised. I had a good time with Resident Evil 3 Remake. However, it's not perfect. Parts of 3 Remake in particular did disappoint me. Mainly it did feel rushed, and the complete erasure of my favourite section of the original, the Parks and Woods section, didn't help things either. I have to say, in my opinion, Resident Evil 3 Remake is the weakest of the series so far, including the original games, but I wouldn't say it was a title that should be skipped, and I ended up enjoying my time with Remake. It is definitely worth playing, but I'd say don't overlook the original either. They are both absolutely worth your time, but 3 Remake, it did feel a bit slapdash, especially compared to 2. 2 had like every section from the original game expanded upon for better and for worse, whereas 3 really glossed over details that I feel like if they kept in, it would have been a much better experience. But I want to know, what are your opinions on Resident Evil 3 and the remake? Did you enjoy the remake more than the original? Did you think that the pacing was fine? Or were you like me and you thought that it could do with stopping a little bit and expanding upon some of the sections more? Please leave your thoughts. If you liked the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more videos, then subscribe. But I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.